Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 56. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajakachaja Stotara Sata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 56. Dukesh anuvignamana sukeshu vigata spriya vitaraga bhaya krodha stita dhir muniruchyate. Dukesh anudvignamana sukeshu vigata spriya vitaraga bhaya krodha stita dhir muniruchyate. Dukesh anudvignamana sukeshu vigata spriya vitaraga bhaya krodha stita dhir muniruchyate. Dukeshu, in the threefold miseries, Anudvigna manaha, without being agitated in mind. Sukeshu, in happiness. Vigata spriyaha, without being too interested. Vita, free from. Raga, attachment. Bhaya, fear. Krodha, anger. Stitadhi, one who is steady. Muni, sage. Uchyate, is called. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. One who is not disturbed in spite of the threefold miseries, who is not elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear and anger, is called the sage of steady mind. Purport. The word Muni refers to one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every Muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a Muni differs from other Munis, he cannot be called a Muni in the strict sense of the term. Naso Munir Yasya Matamna Binnam. But a Stitadhi Muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary Muni. The Stitadhi Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna, or Vasudeva, is everything. He is called Muni, fixed in mind. He is called a Muni, fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna-conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds, and he sees that his miseries, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment, but one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment, because his life is dedicated to the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry, even when his attempts are unsuccessful. A Krishna-conscious person is always steady in determination. Dukesh avaduvigna manaha, sukeshu vigataspriyaha, vetaraga bhaya krodha, stitadir muriruchyate. So in this verse, Krishna points out that a devotee of the Lord, a devotee of Krishna, is even-minded, whether in happiness or distress. In fact, a devotee welcomes distress. He understands the material world is a painful place, and he welcomes distress for a very good reason. Because when distress comes, he very rapidly thinks of Krishna. When things are going well, when there is no difficulties, then we tend to take everything for granted. But when there is trouble, when we are in difficulty, then immediately we rush to Krishna for help. And when we think of Krishna, then the process of taking birth again and again in the material world is finished. This is the opinion of one great lady devotee called Queen Kunti. Queen Kunti was Krishna's aunt. She was the sister of Vasudeva. And her father, Surasena, King Surasena, gave her as a newborn baby, as a newborn child, to his nephew, Kunti Bhoja. Kunti Bhoja had no progeny, so his uncle agreed that if I have a daughter, I will give it to you. So she was brought up as the daughter of Kunti Bhoja, and therefore she's known as Kunti. The actual name is Pritha, and therefore Arjuna is sometimes called by Krishna Partha. Pritha, and then Partha is a conjugation of Pritha, meaning coming from Pritha. So Pritha or Kunti, she grew up as the daughter of King Kunti Bhoja, and one of her duties in her palace was to take care of the sadhus who would regularly visit. In those days, the pious kings, they would welcome brahmanas and munis and sadhus and yogis to their palaces, give them charity, feed them, take care of them, and hear discussions about spiritual life. That was the method of progress. So one day, one famous sage called Durvasa Muni, he came to Kunti Bhoja's palace, and Kunti was chosen to take care of him. She was delegated to take care of Durvasa, and she took care of him so well, and the great sage became so happy with her that he gave her a benediction. He said, "My dear girl, I'm giving you one mantra, by which mantra you can chant and you can bring any demigod in your presence." So, sometime later, she was a young girl after all, so she experimented and she thought, let me try the mantra. So she chanted the mantra, concentrating on the sun god, and the sun god himself appeared, Surya Dev. And when he appeared, he expressed the reason for his appearance is to have conjugation with her, but she was a young girl and she was afraid, and she said, "No, I cannot do this. I am still a virgin lady. I cannot entertain your desire." And he said, "You have to, because when I come, then when I come to somebody, then there has to be some auspicious result of my visit, of my meeting you." She said, "You don't have to worry. You will retain your virginity, but you will give birth to a son." So that happened, and she gave birth to a son in secret. This son is called Karna. And because she was unmarried, young girl, and afraid of her elders, she put the baby in a basket and she floated it down the river Ganges. So this basket was found by a chariot builder, and he took this baby and he brought him up as his son. Later on, Kunti married Pandu during a Swayamvara, or a self-choice. She married Pandu, and Pandu was the emperor of the world. He was the Kuru king from Hastinapura. And Pandu took a second wife called Madri, and they were living peacefully in the forest. Pandu was hunting, and one day, by some accident, he shot one deer while this deer was making love with a female deer, with his wife deer. But it turned out that the deers weren't deer. They were a Brahmana and a Brahmana lady that had taken the body of a deer to enjoy. And when the deer died, the female deer, she cursed Pandu, and she said, "Whenever you will touch one of your wives for intercourse, then you will also die." So this caused a great problem, because Pandu had no children, and being the emperor, he needed to produce a son to take over the kingdom. So he didn't know what to do, and Kunti then told the story of the benediction that she received from Durvasa. So they agreed that she should call different demigods to produce some sons. So she called Dharmaraj, Yamaraj, the Lord of Dharma, and from him Yudhishthira was born. Then she called Bhima, she called Vayu, the god of the wind, and Bhima was born. And then she called Indra, and from Indra Arjuna was born. Then she gave the mantra to her co-wife Madri, who called the Ashwini Kumars, and from the Ashwini Kumaras, demigods, twins were born, Nakula and Sahadeva. And these 5 brothers are called the Pandavas. And soon after that, during a spring day, and nice arrangement for enjoying with his wife, Maharaj Pandu was with Madri, his second wife, and he forgot about the curse, and he forcefully conjugated with her, and of course he immediately died because of the curse of the Brahmana. So then Madri ascended the funeral pyre of her husband, and Kunti remained behind to take care of the 5 Pandavas. So this is the story of Kunti, and she suffered a great deal because the Pandavas, they were the rightful heir to the throne, but their uncle Dhritarashtra, who was the regent, he favored his own son, and there was great enmity between the sons of Dhritarashtra, who were called the Kurus, and the sons of Pandu, the Pandavas. And Kunti Devi, she was all alone trying to take care of these boys, and the sages took them from the forest to the capital city, to the palace, and in the palace there was always intrigues in many ways. Dhritarashtra and his son Duryodhana, they tried to eliminate the Pandavas by poisoning them, by burning down their home, tried to kill them in so many ways, and Kunti suffered a great deal. She prayed to Krishna and she cried. She says, "My dear Krishna, I am simply like a deer, defenseless, in a cave full of ferocious lions. Please help me." And of course the Pandavas, they were exiled, and for 12 years they lived in the forest with Kunti. Eventually they came back. The kingdom was refused to them, so there was a big war. And after the war, the Kurus were defeated and the Pandavas became the emperors. And Krishna was there helping them along the way, and he met them many times. And then Krishna was leaving, and she said, "Now that everything is very nice, you're leaving us, you're going back to Dwarka." She said, "Vipada Shantu Tas Sashwat Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru." She called him, "Dear Jagat Guru, Supreme Lord, Supreme Teacher." He said, "We have suffered so much, and I want the suffering to come back again and again, because when we were suffering, you were always with us. Now that we are not suffering, now that we have gained our kingdom, that we are fully situated and satisfied and happy, and because of your mercy the whole kingdom is prospering, because we are nicely situated, you are leaving. Whereas when we were suffering, you were always with us. Therefore, Bhavato Darshanam Yatad, the suffering allowed us to remember you, to see you. Apurna Bhava Darshanam. And what is the result of seeing Krishna? The result of seeing Krishna is Apurna Bhava Darshanam. You don't see the next birth. You don't take another birth in the material world. You become free from the cycle of birth and death. Therefore, a devotee, he welcomes difficulties, because when there is difficulties, he becomes very rapidly Krishna conscious. In great difficulties, over which we cannot overcome. Who can overcome the difficulties of the material world? Who can overcome old age and death? You cannot. You require help from a superior power. And the devotee's superior power is Krishna. Therefore, when he's in trouble, he immediately remembers Krishna. And when you remember Krishna, you don't come back to the material world. At the moment of death, If you remember Krishna, you go back home, back to Godhead. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram. At the moment of death, ante kalevaram, at the end of the body, yam yam, whatever, smaram bhavam, whatever nature you remember, tat tadeva hiti konteya sada sadbhava bhavita. That consciousness will take you to your next situation. And if you are conscious of me, obviously you come to me. Krishna says, Yanti Deva Brata Devan. People who worship demigods and powerful people within the material world, they go to those demigods. Pitrin Yanti Pritivrataha. Those who worship their ancestors and their family tradition, they go to the planets of the ancestors, the Pitris. There is a planet called Pritiloka in the heavenly planets, which contain where our forefathers lived. Those who worship those forefathers, they go. Pritin yanti pritivrataha. Bhutani yanti bhuteja. Those who worship in the mode of ignorance, black magic, they worship ghosts and spirits, they go to the ghosts and spirits. Yanti mad yajino pimam. Api, although, be sure, those who worship me come to me. Therefore, Punar Bhava Darshanam, Kunti is praying that by remembering you, we don't become forced to take another material birth. And in this verse, Prabhupada comments that Dukeshu. Dukeshu means threefold miseries. What are the threefold miseries? The threefold miseries are Adi Atmik, Adi Bautik, and Adi Daivich. Adi Atmika Klesha. Klesha means trouble. So the Adi Atmika Klesha, which everybody is subjected to, is the difficulties created by our body and our mind. Sometimes we become sick, sometimes we become hungry, sometimes we become thirsty, sometimes our relationships don't work in the material world, sometimes we become... Body and mind is always giving us difficulties. We're always making plans and how to solve these plans, how to solve the problems. We are competing against one another. So the mind is never peaceful and the body is subject to deterioration, to illnesses. These problems, these kleshas or difficulties are called Adi Atmik. Atma means body, Atma means mind, Atma means soul. So the difficulties given to us by the Atma are called Adi Atmika Klesh. The next difficulty, the next klesha or the next misery is called Adi Bautika. Adi Bautika Klesh means, Bautika means other living entities. So sometimes the government, they give us trouble. Our partners give us trouble. Our children give us trouble. Mosquitoes bite us and give us trouble. So other living entities are giving us trouble because in the material world, every living entity is competing with another living entity. We are competing against each other to enjoy more and more of Krishna's facility. So other living entities give us problems. And the third klesha, or the third difficulty, is called Adidaivika Klesh. Daiva means demigods. That means difficulties or miseries given to us which are beyond our control. For example, very cold winters, very hot summers, forest fires, flooding, you name it. Earthquakes. So these, what the insurance business calls acts of God. You can get an insurance against an act of God. An act of God means something beyond your capacity to resist. So Adi Atmika, Adi Daivika, Adi Atmika, Adi Bautika, and Adi Daivika, we are all subject to these triple miseries. So Krishna says, Dukeshu, Adu Vigna Mataha, Manaha, that the mind of one who is a devotee of Krishna is not disturbed by these miseries. Because why? Because he sees Krishna's hand behind everything that is happening to him. He doesn't think that he is independent. A Krishna conscious person has a bond with Krishna, and this bond makes him strong, because Krishna is the strongest of the strongest. So no matter what difficulty I might come, if I remember Krishna, I have the protection of the most powerful entity in creation. So, Sukeshu Vigatas Priyaha. So, Sukeshu Vigatas Priyaha, even in happiness, Vigata, it goes away, Spriya, the attachment. Spriyaha means to be needy, to want. So, even in happiness, the devotee is not so concerned, happiness or distress. Therefore, Krishna describes earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, Sukha dukkha same kritva labala bo jaya joyo, that in happiness or distress, Sukha dukkha same kritva, one who is advanced, one who has Krishna as his friend, he becomes same kritva, he becomes equal to Sukha, happiness, and to distress. Labha labo jaya joyo, gain or loss, victory or defeat. Labha means to gain, alabha means to lose, jaya is to become victorious, and ajaya means to become defeated. But in all those conditions, a devotee is equal. Tato, therefore Krishna advises Arjuna, Tato, therefore, yuddhaya yusvasa, fight. Fight for the sake of fighting. Navam papam avashya, then you will not get any sinful activity. Sinful activity means to operate in a material world independently of God. Arjuna did not want to fight. He wanted to independently be neutral from the battle. He didn't want to fight. He didn't think that I should ask Krishna, what does he want? And when Krishna was actually saying, I want you to fight. This is religion. Religion means to follow the orders of God. Religion means that whatever God says, I will do. Even in the Bible, there is a story of, I think it was Abraham, and God asked him to sacrifice his son. And Abraham did it. But his son came back to life because he followed it was a test to see if the great sage Abraham was actually willing to follow the order of God. The sum substance of life, the sum substance of religion is to follow the order of God. If we do that, then we will be happy. The whole universe, the whole creation is built around this very simple thing. Religion means to follow the order of God. So, we don't have any comments. That means there is some problem with the connection, but I will post this class on my Facebook page and on the ISKCON Amsterdam page. And if you have any comments, you can comment there. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Haribol.